Hello and welcome back to the channel. So we're on our very last day today of our Scottish adventure, and we've definitely saved something special for the end. Today we're with Neil McIntyre. We're going to be photographing great crested tits. Not great crested tits, they're just called crested tits, but they're great in my eyes. They're great in my eyes because they look like they've got a little Mohican, which is just the cutest thing you've ever seen. I have photographed them in the past, a place called Loch Garten, which is an RSPB reserve, but they were quite a way away, and the images that I got were heavily cropped. So I'm hoping for something a little bit different today, something that's very close quarters, something a little bit intimate, and hopefully, if the light plays, something that looks a bit special too. So come along for the journey and see what we see. So we've arrived. I think it's probably better if I just move a little bit out of the sun. So the setup's really quite simple. It's in an open woodland, and he's got feeders that he puts out regularly, and then there is a feeder on a blue post, which I'll show you shortly, and you walk that round wherever you want in the woods, and you set it up next to all the natural perches. So nothing here is put out ready-made, it's all ready for you to use your imagination. So you find your perch, pop the pole with the peanut feeder at the side of it, and wait for the birds to come to you, and they literally follow that feeder around wherever you walk with it. Mick just showed us around, and wherever he walked with that feeder, the birds followed. And what we've got at the moment is lots of little tits on it: blue tits, cold tits, great tits. I've seen the crested tits, but they're just currently not on this perch. So we'll keep waiting, and when we see them, I'll get you some video and I'll get you some photographs. So what we've got here is I found an old tree, and one of the branches that comes out from the side is all covered in lichen. And so I've positioned the feeder at sort of the same height to it, but just off to the side. And then, as you can see, then as the birds come in, they start to form a queue, and the only available perch for them to do that is the one that I've already got focused, pre-focused on and ready for them to land on. It's a really novel, easy way of getting photographs of little birds, and as you rarely see crested tits, to get this close is just unbelievable. You can see now how quickly the feeder has become absolutely full of birds. You know, they're not fazed by the fact that I'm moving it around at all. They just follow it round, and they know that it's a good source of food. And so it's just a case of waiting and waiting for the crested tit to land where you want it to. So that's the target species there on the feeder. That's a crested tit with a cold tit looking on the other side, and you can just see his little Mohican blowing in the wind. So we've just had the first of what I hope will be many crested tits. It come in, landed on the perch just where I wanted it to land. The sun was out, so we've got a little bit of backlight going on, which should produce some quite nice images. Another one's just come in, so I'm going to crack back at it. I've moved the post into a new different site now, and we've got a bit of a larger stump in front of us with lots of lichen around it. And just as Mick said, the birds follow that feeder around, so wherever you carry it to, the birds will go to. And so they're currently mainly on the feeder in front of me. While the light's not particularly great, I'm just going to talk to you very quickly about settings. Now, as I've probably mentioned in a number of other videos, I tend to use 1,000th of a second as a base layer, a sort of a foundation for photographing birds. That is until you're photographing small birds like tits. They never stop. They're constantly moving, and actually at 1,000th of a second, when they're beating the wings, they'll be completely blurred. So I double it. And so that the starting point that I'll look at is 2,000th of a second. Sometimes I'll increase that or much higher, but a lot of that is depending on the light that is available. So I'm shooting wide open at f4. Occasionally I stop down a little bit to f5.6, and then I'm adjusting my shutter speed all the time, but I'm never really falling below that 2,000th of a second mark. Occasionally when the light really dips, as it has done now, I might drop down to 1,500th of a second. But again, I'm photographing with much higher shutter speed for small birds than I would do for the larger birds. A couple of other little tips. Pre-focus on your perch, and then resist the temptation to... Here he's coming. Resist the temptation to deviate from that perch when the birds land on other areas, because you can guarantee the minute you move off to a different area and focus up to take the shot, they fly back to the original perch that you've already set up. So resist that temptation, and then it is just literally a waiting game, waiting and waiting for them to land on the perch that you want them to, and then just rattle off a couple of shots rather than holding the button down and, you know, getting hundreds. I tend to operate small bursts. And so I take little bursts, and then that gives me a good array of different photographs to focus on. And some of them I get beautiful shots with the wings opening. That's even better when you've got the light coming through from behind. You get that backlit of the bird's wings and all the feathers shining through, which looks incredible. So after spending about half an hour on a perch, I then go and have a look round, and I'm looking for something different. And it is just a case of walking around and looking. There's loads of different choices on offer. So there's different trees, there's different small shrubs, there's falling down branches and amongst the heather. And it is really just a case of thinking about the light source. So at the moment the light's coming in from this direction, looking at the perches and then thinking about the shot that you want. Do I want to backlight the subject, in which case I need a perch where the sun's going to be shining from behind? Do I want the light to fall onto the subject, in which case I'm looking back towards with the light behind over my shoulder? And I'm just moving around the woods and looking for various different perches and something that's a little bit different from what I've already got. As I say, after about half an hour, you've probably got at least 50-60 photographs of the crested tit on your perch. So then rather than just becoming stale, it's a case of moving around and looking for different subjects. It can be a little overwhelming because there is such a choice here. So really you've just got to take your time, take it all in as a bit of a mindful moment. You know, the birds are all singing around me. I'm in the middle of the woods all by myself. I mean, it's perfect. And then just look for that perfect perch. So we've just moved again. The rain's stopped for a second, but I think there's more on its way looking at it. The sun's come out now, which is just nice. I'm going to talk you through this next perch that I've got set up here. So what we've got here is a really low perch. You can see it's just some fallen logs, and I've set the feeder just up to the side of it. And what I'm capturing here, when the light's just right, is the beautiful browns of that heather behind it that are lovely, blurred out in the background, but create a really pleasing background to that thick log that they seem to be perching on before they're jumping onto the feeder. So I thought I'd just give you another tip. When you're photographing low down, as I am doing here, a log that's fallen down just behind me there, the ground is completely saturated, like ridiculous, like a bog. And so kneeling down, it's uncomfortable on my knees. Sitting down is just ridiculous. I'd be soaking wet. So what I've done, if I show you here, I have used the flip screen. So I flip the screen up. I can stand up with my camera down at low level, looking at my flip screen, and then be taking the shot from stood upright. I always believe that the comfier you are in the field, the longer you will wait for the right moment to take the shot. If you're uncomfy, if everything's hurting, you feel rushed to take the shot. So getting comfortable is a really important little tip. Having a quick cup of coffee, and then I think I'm probably going to call it an end to the day. As you can probably tell, I think I've had the best of the light. The clouds built quite a lot now, and it's just been snowing. It's just stopped, but because we're having to push the shutter speed so high for these small birds, it does mean that you know, when you're thinking about your exposure triangle, something's got to give. And so when the ISO's reaching 10,000, I think we're probably images that aren't really going to make the cut. There is a few bits of blue behind me that are appearing, so I'll probably give it the time it takes me to drink my cup of coffee, and then hopefully I might get a few more. If I haven't though, and you've enjoyed coming along with me for this final aspect of the Scottish tour and photographing these wonderful little crested tits, please consider giving the video a like. If you haven't subscribed, I know I say it every single time, please consider giving me a subscribe. It does make a big difference to the channel. We've hit 1,500 subscribers now whilst I've been away in Scotland, which is, you know, it's a bit of a milestone for me, that, and I really feel like the channel is growing and growing and growing, and that's thanks to you guys, so I really appreciate that. So if you want to drop me a comment, feel free to pop a comment below. More and more people are doing that, and I always, you know, enjoy interacting with people that are watching the videos. Until next time, ta-ra.